Hello, I am an irrelevant millennial, and I'd like to share my opinions with you. Also, just a heads up, I'm letting myself be slightly lazier than usual with the visuals of this video, because it's, like, focused on music, so I don't think it's as important. There's still gonna be, like, some pictures here and there, but, yeah, I'm sorry, okay? I'm already late on this video. It's Friday. I was supposed to finish this yesterday. But anyway, I'm gonna be talking about the video game Hiveswap here, but what I'm saying also applies to pretty much any piece of media with a soundtrack, particularly indie games. Let me preface this by saying that I am a big fan of Hiveswap, and I deeply respect the musicians that worked on it, and nothing I say should be seen as an attempt to bash the game or its composers. I promise you, that is the absolute last thing I would do, and my criticism comes purely from a place of love. So, I think the Hiveswap soundtrack has been very good so far, and that is slightly disappointing, because Homestuck's soundtrack was absolutely incredible, and I'm not sure that it quite lives up to it. Let me explain why. In terms of objective quality, I don't think it's any worse at all. In fact, I think it sounds more professional than Homestuck, but that's actually kind of the issue I take with it. There's a sliding scale I like to imagine of soundtracks, whether they're for games, movies, or whatever, that shows where their priorities lie. The right side is for music that tries to stand out and be as memorable as possible, and the left side is for music that tries to sound professional and seamless to the point that it blends into the background to serve its function of setting the tone for scenes. This is not a quality scale. All of the examples I'm showing are things that I consider to be good at what they do, it's just that they do different things. I mean, you probably shouldn't be hearing the hottest banger of the decade while you're contemplating the limits of the human spirit at Firelink's Shrine, which is why the music there is very understated. However, for a game like Hiveswap, it is my opinion that further right is better, because Homestuck and Undertale have shown us the power of memorable OSTs when it comes to people's adoration of indie projects. At the far left, you have your modern big-budget movie titles. I dare you to try and remember more than one or two songs from these, but you're not really supposed to remember them. Their purpose is to get into your brain and help influence how you feel about what's on screen. As you move further to the right, you get things like Dark Souls, Star Wars, Bloodborne. These are orchestral soundtracks that still aren't meant to be paid that much attention to, but they also introduce iconic themes and melodies that you'll remember. Oh my god, I love the Bloodborne soundtrack so much. I think a good example of the midpoint would be Minecraft. It has simple piano compositions meant to sit in the background while you're placing blocks, but they're still quite noticeable when they happen. After that, we got your old school video games like Mario and Sonic. At this stage, especially around the Sonic point, catchy melodies and funky basslines start popping up, and the act of merely listening to music itself feels engaging. It's like it adds a whole other level of sensory input where your ears are trying to keep up with the in-your-face soundtrack while your eyes and hands are focusing on trying to play as skillfully as possible, and oh god, Sonic Mania is so good, why have I not played it yet? Alright, I have no money. Around the same area we have Umineko, which, I'm not sure how many people are even familiar with it, but it is a visual novel with an absolutely fantastic soundtrack. I'm including it as an example because it serves as good proof that you can have an orchestral soundtrack that is every bit as memorable as 16-bit video game music. Because it's a visual novel, there is very little stimulus outside of reading words and listening to voice acting, so there's plenty of room for the music to stand out, and oh man does it stand out. It completely throws out any notions of generic VN fluff music. You'll look up some songs from it if you want to hear what I mean. And after that, we begin entering the Toby Fox zone. The reason I consider Umineko, Undertale, and Homestuck to be further to the right than Sonic is because these are all much slower paced experiences, and it's much easier to pay attention to the songs and really get them stuck in your head. I mean, in Undertale, your character might as well have some earbuds in while he nonchalantly strolls around listening to music, since that's kind of the experience the player feels in playing that game. And Homestuck's animations are basically full-fledged music videos where the songs are totally front and center, and all of them have striking melodies that demand almost all of your focus. So where's Hiveswap hidden on this scale? Probably, like, right here, I guess? Yeah, it's got some memorable tunes, but it just doesn't strike me as the kind of thing fans are gonna go crazy over listening to again and again, like with Homestuck and Undertale. And I think I know why. See, Homestuck had such a massively diverse soundtrack. I mean, you had Toby Fox's classics like Megalovania, Atomic Empire, Edonpire, Moonsetter. You had Eric Shea with Clark Powell's 3 in the Morning. RJ Lake had some amazing songs that never even got used, like Ugly Betty and Three's a Crowd. Tensei, oh my god, Jordan DeBruin's incredible Strife album filled with electric guitar solos. And Malcolm Brown wrote and Eternity Served Cold. Doctor is honestly one of my favorite songs of all time, and it was written by, okay, so it was written by George Buzenkai but it was arranged by Michael, and okay, my point is, there are a lot of different people who made the music, and I could go on and keep listing off names, but I think you get the idea. There's also the concept of professionalism. I'm not sure anybody in the Homestuck music team was a professional when they joined. They were generally just young people who loved music and wanted to make some cool songs. This, I believe, helped a lot with how much people loved the soundtrack. Everything felt very personal, like you'd occasionally notice some rough spots and maybe some mixing mistakes, but that was okay because this is a ragtag group of kids all trying to add their own unique style to everything, so every song felt exceedingly genuine. Hiveswap feels like it's trying to be a bit more professional, and that itself is obviously not a bad thing, but there's this tendency when trying to be professional where people start to take fewer risks because they don't want anything to sound bad. Look at the Homestuck version of Megalovania for an example. I can only speak from guesswork here, but I do not think the song was trying to be professional. It sounds like Toby just took an Earthbound sound font and made a cool little melody loop and then extended that into a full song. And yeah, it sounds a little rough around the edges in terms of mix quality, but he got Tensei to play the sick as hell guitar lead over it and the whole thing was just... it's fucking awesome. And you had all these different people trying their best to make these awesome songs that would stand out and be loved. Not that I'm saying that improving is a bad thing or anything like that, I'm just saying that there are a lot of different people who are just kind of trying to make whatever without caring that much about it being 100% perfect, and I think that's what helped lead to the creation of some pretty unique and memorable songs. In Hiveswap you've got Toby Fox and James Roach. Now, I don't know if it would have been feasible to get an equally massive cast of musicians for Hiveswap. I'm sure it would have been difficult or probably impossible from a monetary and management standpoint, so I'm not criticizing that decision. And I really don't want to single out James here because he's clearly very good at what he does. There's some really solid and complex compositions in the game, but I don't know. I'm not saying it should have been someone else instead, and I'm happy for him landing this job, but his style just doesn't seem like it quite captures what made the Homestuck OST so great. There's a running gag about him inserting tubas into everything, and I feel like that kind of sums it up right there. There's a lot fewer sharp synths and a lot more tubas, and that kind of instrumentation shift combined with a lowered emphasis on ear-catching melodies moves the whole thing a lot further left on that scale that I mentioned. And I don't think a style change is necessarily a bad thing. Like, Filthy Nuclear Bunker is fantastic, it's my favorite song on the whole album, and it's super memorable even though it's stylistically different from Homestuck. So James Roach is without a doubt capable of doing what I've been talking about. It's just a matter of what direction he feels the music should go in. Okay, so while I was editing this, I realized that I may have accidentally made it seem like I'm saying Toby is like the big perfect music man and James is like the new kid that he's trying not to be held back by, but that is not what I intended at all. I believe that they are both equally responsible for the soundtrack being great instead of amazing. They do have a very good job at blending their styles to the point where I don't think I would have known who wrote what if I hadn't looked at the OST commentaries beforehand. So I think they're equal, although I think Toby would have probably written things differently if James did not infect him with the tuba virus. And like, because it's a point-and-click adventure and there's not much going on moment to moment, I feel like it's somewhat missing out on the opportunity to really blow people away with some catchy music like Umineko does. It's memorable, but just not as memorable as it could be, and I feel like the choices of instruments and James Roach's style in particular seem like they were going for more of a sort of thing where they're like, alright, we're making a point-and-click adventure, so let's make some nice point-and-click adventure music that's pretty chill and not too intrusive. And that's fine, but I personally don't think it's fantastic, and I think it should have the potential to be. There are exceptions to everything I've talked about. Songs like Filthy Nuclear Bunker and Final Spice are quite catchy, and you've occasionally got things like Jude Harley Bizarrely, which... yeah, that thing I talked about with being afraid to make anything weird for fear of sounding bad / unprofessional, I think the song is a pretty good example of not being afraid of that, and I love it for that reason. But these songs make up a relatively small percentage of the music compared to Homestuck's memorability ratio, and I just hope future albums go in this direction a bit more. And if anyone watching this is thinking you need to be careful here and make sure the music isn't too distracting, allow me to introduce you to this obscure little indie game called Persona 5. So you know how 99% of background music across all the media has no lyrics because it'd be too distracting? Yeah, this right here is a normal level theme. It plays while you're running around the normal dungeon, solving puzzles and finding items and stuff like that, and I don't know about you, but I was not complaining when I heard it. There are definitely times where you want the music to sit in the background, which is why Persona 5 is all over the place on this scale and has some much milder songs too, and I mean, like, could you imagine if this happened every time an Overwatch match started instead of its admittedly boring jingle?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attack commencing.
Wake up, get up there.
Yeah, that'd get annoying pretty quick.
Raise your voice, I guess, like a...
But I personally think you can get away with songs like this pretty damn often, and things like Umineko are proof that they don't take away from a text-heavy experience at all. I'm really bringing that game up a lot. It's got good music, I'm sorry I can't help it. Again though, I just want to stress this as much as possible. This is not even remotely a dig at Toby Fox or James Roach. I think they are both fantastic musicians and overall great people, and I'd love to be friends with them. I don't know if they're both watching this, but if they are, I just want to remind them that I wouldn't be criticizing any of this if I didn't feel so much respect for them and what they do. I mean, the first piano cover I uploaded on this channel was a song from this game. I've always had a tendency to criticize the things I love to a fault. Like, occasionally I'll do an art trade or something with somebody and I'll be like blown away by how much I love it, but I'll still nitpick little details because it's so close to perfection that I can't help but try and take it from 99% to 100%. So I'm saying all of this because I really adore Homestuck and Hiveswap, and I think it's important to admit when our favorite things are lacking in some aspect, even just a little bit. Again, the soundtrack is great and I'm not rubbed the wrong way by it, but it's descending from music so fantastic that I can't help but notice the minor discrepancies. Maybe they're just waiting for the later acts for the crazy stuff, since that's kind of how it was in Homestuck. I don't know. Part of me is wondering if I should really even bother uploading this. I mean, this is a relatively minor nitpick, and on top of that, I'm younger and way less experienced than James and Toby. Like, I am fully confident that they are both far better musicians than me, so maybe it's not my place to criticize. But I just felt like this was something worth talking about, and I hope people understand where I'm coming from. I guess what I'm really trying to say here is, James, if you're watching this, lay off the tubas, maybe. And Toby, if you're watching this, please stop James from adding more tubas. That is all.